Okay, as you know, in the last video I did as Matt from the past, I said that I had no idea when the show would be back, and that's because about $50 to $75 right now is my spending limit for a computer. With, you know, being unemployed and all. Well, I was lucky enough to find this for $50 shipped. It's the Dell Optiplex 755. Don't know if you can see that right there. And it was originally made for Windows Vista Business, but and I was surprised when it came in to find that it was actually the exact same. It actually seems to be the exact same model that my local library had for years. But what surprised me was that while my local libraries one always seemed slow and had a tendency to crash, this one with just a little bit of tinkering seems to work and run my programs just fine, just a little slower. The first thing you'll know, and I found a bunch of these on eBay, and they all seem to go for around the $50 to $70 range, which is good if you need a stopgap PC until you can save up. It has an Intel Core 2 Duo that runs at 2.33 gigahertz. You can get one. I've seen that you can get a processor that'll fit in here that runs up to 3 gigahertz, and I'll probably upgrade that a little bit. But something I found interesting was that this is so old and yet it runs things fairly smoothly. There was a part on it that said it was manufactured in 2006, as I said, and that seems to match up with what information I was able to find up on this. But it comes without a graphics card. So, yeah, as you can see, you have to run it off of this, which will only put out full screen graphics. But I found in the back of my closet this 1 gigabyte DDR3 GeForce 8400. I had completely forgotten about it. It was so old. But this thing has a PCI Express 2 slot, but it's low bracket, and that's what you need. You need a low bracket. Now I couldn't find a low bracket for the graphic card on this, but if I just took off this part and took this part off the graphic card, I found that it would fit in, and it actually runs games as recent as Mass Effect 3 fairly trouble-free. Now when you get in, it looks really complicated to replace anything. For instance, the one thing I was able to salvage off of my old PC was the hard drive, so I got that in. However, it's not as complicated as it looks. This normally comes with a 40 to 80 gigabyte hard drive, depending on what you do, and it's usually an X business model. Here's the graphics card, as you can see. Usually it would stick out here. That's how it did on my old PC, but as you can see, yeah, this is where the VGA cable hooked up to. You just unscrew this, and as you can see, it was damaged a bit when I unscrewed it. It was sort of in the back of a closet, and because my room's overstuffed with old computer parts that I keep just in case, and boy, am I glad I did. But you see, this just pulls right out, no trouble, and then you got a DVI one that runs pretty smoothly. As I said, it's more complicated than it looks. For instance, I was able to get this hard drive out here without any real trouble. There are actually instructions for it right here, and you see I took out the 80 gig hard drive and put in the 1 terabyte hard drive that was on my old PC. you just push these and unclamp this, and it all comes out. Here's the part where the graphics card was, and that's where I got the first glimpse of a manufacturing date. And the seller, yeah, he got it to me in less than a week, so I'm very happy. It has a... You can also replace the power supply, from what I understand, to something that draws more power, but so far I haven't really needed it, And yeah, for an 11-year-old PC, this is in very good shape, and the compact design doesn't actually hurt anything. I haven't had any problems with it overheating. I've been using it for almost a month now. And I just find this an interesting piece of hardware. And from what I can tell online, I should be able to put a Blu-ray burner drive on here, provided I get one that is made for a laptop. It won't take a full-size one. One thing I did find interesting was that it had a floppy drive. I wasn't aware that as late as 2006 they were still putting floppy drives on computers. I mean, I remember the library having one on it, but I always assume when I saw this model or something close to it, my library, I can't check now because they upgraded their PCs about a year ago, but that it was much older than it actually was. I took a look online, and this power supply seems quite easy to replace, and you can find the parts if you really want to do that, but it takes 4 gigs of DDR2 RAM, up to 4 gigs. My library only had 2 gigs in it, so that accounts for it running slow, and it had a much slower processor. Now all that's required to disassemble this thing is one of these small Phillips head screwdrivers, and as you can see, everything comes out. As I said, it looks more complicated than it is. I'm not going to take it apart and do all that stuff, but as you can see, it'll fit all the screws. You just unscrew this stuff and it just pops right out, so that's a plus. And it's a very robust PC. This is, I guess, back from when Dell was really making them robust, or at least because it's a business model. And with this 1 gigabyte graphics card, it does fine. Even though it only supports DDR2 and the RAM, it seems to have no trouble running the full DDR3, and it was just plug and play. I just dropped it in and it just worked. Graphics card. Now, if you look for a graphics card to upgrade this, you're likely to find on eBay something like this. I ordered this before I found that in my closet, because as I said, I forgot. And it either comes in what I have here, the 256 megabyte version, or a 512 megabyte version, and it runs okay, but it tends to stall or not want to run games at full screen in 1080p mode or something like that, whereas this will run them in full 1080p mode. So I'm not going to demonstrate the difference between the graphics card because I don't want to pull out and put graphics cards back in. That's just too much trouble. But I will give you a sample of just how it edits my videos together fine. So that's why I'm back together here. And I'll give you a quick sample once I put this back together and put it back in my room. And as I said, it's a snap to take apart too. This is the easiest PC I've ever had to take apart, actually, despite how complicated it looks. I took out all the parts when I first got it to see what I could replace, if there was anything I could replace eventually while waiting to have the money for my new PC. But as you can see, there's just this latch on the back. Normally I think there's a key in it, but yeah, that's one thing I guess you should look for on eBay, is to make sure that they have the key or that it was unlocked at the time that they're selling it. But yeah, you just pull that and it works perfectly. And you can just slam any SATA hard drive, as far as I can tell, into it, as long as it's the 3.5-inch version. So yeah, I'll give you just an idea of what its performance is like with Mass Effect 3, which is the most advanced game I have to run on it. Yeah, I know it's 5 years old, but this isn't intended as a gaming PC. This is just intended as a placeholder, and once I get the money, I'll get a proper gaming PC. But if it runs a 5-year-old game fine, that surprised me, because this processor is actually a little under the recommended specs for Mass Effect 3, but once I put in the new graphics card, it worked. Well, you'll see. You'll judge for yourself how it worked. Okay, so here's the game running Mass Effect 3 at 30 frames per second. It's not the full 60 frames, but as you can see, it runs fairly smoothly. There is one caveat I need to make, though, and that is it runs it fine at as you can see, 1920 by 1080, and it's in full screen. The only thing I found was that to get a really smooth frame rate with this hardware, because the graphics card is well below the specs Mass Effect 3 calls for as well. So what I found was that I had to turn off anti-aliasing and dynamic shadows here. But as you can see, it doesn't look too bad. And I'll give you some game footage I'll give you some actual gameplay footage in a moment to demonstrate that. Alright, yeah. I'll cut to some gameplay, and I'll show you how smooth that runs when you're under fire and such. Okay, I'm using this mission because it has a cinematic. It should give you a good idea of how smooth the game runs. I'll let the cinematic play out. And then I'll One thing I would like to remark on is here is a 5-year-old game running on an 11-year-old PC, and they managed to get all the facial animations and emotions correct on this game. And yet, for some reason,
holy hell,
even if you run it on state-of-the-art PC or state-of-the-art video game system, Mass Effect Andromeda is all over the place. They can't get these basic pieces of animation right.
Yes.
And they wonder why the series just died
and got
canceled, and why it looks unlikely
Commander,
BioWare
the LZ's getting swarmed. James, open that hatch.
On EA. Squarely. Another great studio kill.
Get out. Let's move.
I haven't played this in a long time but as you can see with the frame rate smoothly, it transitions from cinematic to without any trouble, and even with the anti-aliasing and the dynamic shadows things off. So, yeah, if you're looking for a good budget PC that you could just use as a stopgap until your next one, and you don't worry about running the most modern games, but you just want to do some video editing, keep up your Kindle, do some writing, surf the web without any problems, play The Sims Free, which is another demanding game that runs fine on this, make your own DVDs, that sort of thing. This is a good alternative for the $50 price range, and you'll find a lot of them being sold off. A bunch of businesses seem to be getting rid of them for some reason, even though they're still perfectly serviceable. So you can find them at a decent price, and that's how I fixed my computer problem. Hope you found this interesting, and hey, if you're on an extremely tight budget like me, maybe this will help you. Ooh. If you just had a PC die. Alright, well, I'll see you next time when we'll be looking at a TV show. Finally. Thanks for watching and goodbye.